Baie dankie. Dankie vir elke like, elke share, elke comment. Nog steeds tot vandag toe. Baie dankie. Ek waardeer dit so baie.
Hey folks, this is Chris here. Chris Wyatt, excuse me a second. Welcome to Chris Wyatt Africa on the Dab Africa channel. I don't know if we had technical problems and what happened there, but we did start the program with some lovely music from Giselle, of course, with Für uns Mensa, and then after that we had Sidefest. So hopefully enjoyed that. Kind of a Namibia theme. Of course, I've got my rugby jersey on as usual. Here you go, wearing my Velvitches jersey from the 2019 Rugby World Cup. One of two in my collection, including the coveted road jersey from the 2015 Rugby World Cup, which I had a hard time getting. My guest, I think, may have had some technical difficulties and has just popped in now. So let me put my earpiece in and we will get started, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your patience. Once again, welcome to Chris Wyatt Africa on the Dab Africa channel. So, all right. Are you there?
Hi, Chris. I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can. I've got to put you on the screen, though, because you're just a phantom. Nobody can see you. And okay. There you are. You're on the screen now. I've just got to adjust it. Okay. Well, welcome. I was getting very concerned that you were actually living in South Africa, not in Namibia, since I figured it was either a network or a rolling blackout that it struck.
No, it was just I had Zoom installed on my computer and somehow I misplaced it and I had to go back to the browser and, you know, still just not a technophobe yet.
Okay, so we've clarified one thing so far in this. By the way, it's more of a conversation than an interview. So, you know, if you want to ask me questions, you're welcome to do that. But so in this conversation, we've clarified one thing. You're not a tech geek. We've sorted that part out.
Yeah, no. I can help myself, but you know, I didn't live in the world of Zoom meetings the past 4 months. So it's just one of those things that sometimes you misplace it on your desktop and then it just have to start all over again.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started then. You and I have not had a chance to talk ahead of time, so this is definitely for my audience, the viewing audience that tunes in. Typically, what I usually do with most of my guests, although that seems to be less and less common of late, is I like to talk to them ahead of time. We usually do it on WhatsApp or Zoom, just to make sure I don't ask anything out of bounds or we don't talk about something sensitive. For instance, Monty Jackson. I don't know if you know Monty Jackson. He's a country musician from South Africa. He'll be coming on the show soon, and he said, can we talk about anything about politics? Because so many members of his family have been murdered on farms that he doesn't want to talk about politics. Like, no, we won't talk about that on the show. So you and I didn't get a chance to talk about it. But the one ground rule I do have is I don't ask about immediate family members unless my guest wants to talk about them. So if that comes up and you want to talk about it, that's your prerogative. And then we can talk about it. Otherwise, we don't. But some people love to talk about their kids. Some people love to talk about their partner. Some people don't want to talk about how angry they are at their partner. That's a whole other story. But anyway, that's not what we're here for today. So, okay, so let's get started. Wow, all I got to say is this. I've followed politics in Namibia since it was still, you know, under administration from South Africa, when it was Southwest Africa. And I also did a lot of research during the German colonial era. And I have been to Namibia many, many times. And I expected that the ANC would face a legitimate electoral challenge in its 4th or 5th election, and the Democratic Alliance kind of missed the plot and fell back and didn't make a real challenge this last time. But they will face a real challenge in 2021, just because the aura of liberation wears off, and if you don't deliver, people start to get angry. So I didn't honestly think that was going to happen in Namibia, but wow, let's see, fish rot, service delivery failures, a president completely out of touch with Namibians, threatening white Namibians if they don't vote for SWAPO, they're going to pay a price. I'd have to say that things changed here very, very quickly. Your party, which you're a member of, is it the Independent Patriots for Change? Is that correct, or did I get it wrong?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
Okay, so your party was just formed by a prominent former member of SWAPO who ran against King Gao last year and didn't win, but he did quite well on the poll. So he formed the party in August, and here we are. You guys run, and wow, look at the performance. Not just you, but several opposition parties have done quite well. SWAPO lost at least 30 constituencies. If I'm correct, they've lost control of Swakopmund, Luderitz, Windhoek, and Maltahua, Rehoboth. The list goes on and on. They really only seem to have a bastion in the local and regional level still in Ovamboland and up in the north. If I captured it correctly, or did I miss something?
Well, it's basically we've taken the urban areas and pushed SWAPO out to the rural areas, basically. So the main centers, which is Windhoek, Swakopmund, and Walvis Bay, is now IPC run. as well as Oranjemund and Luderitz, which we didn't contest in the south, which is Keetmanshoop and Marienthal and all of that, because we've got another upcoming party, the LPM. They contested highly in those areas, but we came out strong in the areas that mattered most, and that's Walvis Bay, Swakopmund and Windhoek, which is now under IPC and coalition control.
Okay, well, I'm not allowed to talk because someone on the channel named Afrikaner said in Afrikaans, Chris, please let the lady speak. So apparently I'm not allowed to talk on my own program. Well, thank you for Afrikaner. Bye a donkey. Anyway, but let me ask you this question. Okay, so I've just listened to your accent. Now, having been in Namibia, of course, I speak German, and I get by in Afrikaans. I understand it, but I don't speak particularly well. But Ciske Smith Howard. That doesn't, now in Namibia, I've seen lots of white folks who are German, who are Afrikaans, even some who are Portuguese. It's not often you come across two Anglo names in the same, without, if you don't want to reveal, but the accent doesn't give me the impression that you're anything other than perhaps ethnic German or Afrikaans. Have I missed the ball?
Well, I'm quite Afrikaans actually, and it's a funny story. Sorry, I got married 3 years ago.
Congratulations.
Sorry. And my husband's surname is Howard. And I never got around to change my ID. And then the elections rolled around and we had to give our ID in. So I had to make a plan with my maiden surname. So it became Smith Howard, just because my ID was still Smith. And but I'm from a very Afrikaans home, grew up Afrikaans. My husband is English. But he actually grew up in Paarl in South Africa, which is also a very Afrikaans town. So the accent is definitely Afrikaans. I can speak a little bit of German, but I won't put it out there that I can converse in it. The group that we've fallen into here in Swakopmund is obviously very German, being Swakopmund. Yep. So I've picked up quite a bit, and they sort of start off in Afrikaans and then somewhere in the middle of the sentence, they switch over to English and then suddenly to German. And the rest of the evening will just be German. So I've really learned my ear has become quite accustomed to the German, but I'm Afrikaans.
Das habe ich mir gedacht. That's what I thought. But anyway, but names can be misleading. It's like I had someone on Twitter is attacking me, spewing all kinds of nonsense, which is based in nothing. And it said that my audience is all right wingers, and actually my audience is quite diverse from a standpoint of ethnicity. It's like they attack my moderators. All your moderators are all white men. But then I had a Zoom session to coordinate, what moderators should be doing, and I'm like, that's a woman. That's a woman. That's a colored guy. That's a black woman. That's a black guy. People make lots of assumptions based on surnames. That's what I'm talking about. And a number of these people were colored in particular had, of course, Afrikaans surnames. So people just assumed that they were white folks.
Exactly. Yeah.
So are you from?
And it's Namibia.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, you go. You're my guest. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I said especially in Namibia, all of our colored people do have Afrikaans surnames.
Yeah.
So that's why you would be easily be mistaken, because we've had a Afrikaans, big Afrikaans influence.
Yeah. Well, of course, you're not talking about the Bosters because we wouldn't call them colored. They would take offense to that.
I am actually talking about the Bosters, but I forgot that that you're actually also local.
Well, I do have a few Buster viewers, so we don't want to offend our Buster viewers out there as well.
But I've got family in South Africa, and the first time, obviously, when I started speaking about the Busters, yes. They were like, no, we can't say that. No, it's the colors. I said, no, you're misunderstanding me. It's an ethnic group within Namibia. They've got their own culture. They've got a rich history. I love the traditions. I love the way they've sort of kept themselves together, where they come from and how they've kept all of their old traditions alive. So we must give them the credit by calling them the Busters. It's an honorary name. It's not a derogatory name.
Absolutely. By the same token, in South Africa, many people who are considered colored take that as they own that. They are colored. It's not. Yeah. I mean, I have to explain that to American audiences. Like I gave a lecture a couple years ago called "Great Decisions." It's a series that Ivy League schools do, and I did this a couple years ago. And the title, I don't pick the title. They pick it at Harvard or Yale, and then we do it at different universities. And the title of that conversation was "South Africa's Fragile Democracy." And so I was talking about it, and I was talking about different ethnicities in South Africa, and I said color, and I said, listen, okay, hang on. This is not 1950s Selma, Alabama. It's not a racial insult. That's a term that people take great pride in being called that.
Yeah.
And by the same token, in Namibia, the Basters are quite proud of that. And of course, if you know what the word means, it means bastard, but they own it. They own it, and rightly so. It's good on them. So there you go.
Words have to come from somewhere. So, it's names comes from somewhere. So
Exactly.
if that's where it comes from, it doesn't define you. It's just what you're called.
So are you from Swakopmund, or did you move there? Are you like a carpetbagger who moved in on Swakopmund, or did you grow up there?
I actually come from Gubabis. I don't know if you know Gubabis.
Yes.
It amongst some people, it's sort of been seen as one of the most racist places in Namibia, but it's not the way we grew up.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, no, it's a very farmer orientated place. But it's a brilliant. I had such a lovely childhood. We were so free, and it was such a safe community. And like I said to somebody the other day, we had to play with the black kids and the colored kids because that's the only kids that were there. We didn't understand what this all was about. So I grew up in Gubabis, and then I went to high school in South Africa, actually, and then back to Namibia after that, and then we moved to Swakop shortly after we got married 3 years ago. And that's part of the reason why I didn't run for town council, because I just felt I hadn't been in Swakop long enough to run on the local authority level.
Well, let's get around to that because I'm a little confused about the election. Okay, I do get the concept that you have local, so municipal elections and regional elections. I got that. But the Namibian and the other newspapers were very confusing in the reporting and the reportage of what seats you won. So they gave the impression that you're like sort of like the mayor of Swakopmund now, or the head of the council. Then I saw that you were actually appointed the chair of the regional council for that region. And so I'm really confused. I know you won an election, so congratulations. I did see the vote
Thank
count.
you.
But what did you win exactly? Do we open up the box to see what it is now?
Yeah, it was a surprise for me as well. So I won so first and foremost, I stood as a regional councillor candidate. And like you said, I won with 47% of the vote, the total vote in Swakopmund, which, it's not at all by my own doing. That was 100% the people of Swakopmund carried me across the line there. And then further to that, once you're in council decides who goes to national council and who's your management committee within the regional council, and then they choose a head of the management committee. Now, the party actually asked me to go to national council, but I declined because I said to them, I stood in this region and I want to work in this region. National council is parliament, and I felt I could be more of service to the people in Swakopmund as a regional councillor. And I took the gamble to avail myself as chairperson of the council. And luckily it went that way. So it was part of the negotiations within the coalition and all of that. But I got the chairmanship for regional council. So that basically means, according to our Regional Councils Act, that I'm the political head in the region. It's like my sister's son said the other day when I walked in and he saw me for the first time after the elections. He said, Ciske, you know the president of Swakop. And I said, no, I'm the president of the region.
So you can pardon my confusion as an American, thousands of miles away because.
Yeah, exactly.
Yikes. Well, I thought I got it correct, and in the end, I did get it correct. So that's interesting. But, well, congratulations on that. And some people are like 47%. That's not even half. Well, there were a lot of candidates on the ballot. I saw the tally.
Yeah, we were 8, I think.
Yeah, I saw the tally, and you beat the SWAPO candidate by 2,500 votes. That was half your total then. So that was quite impressive. So for those who are going 47%, hey, 47% was pretty impressive, I'd say.
Of the total votes, yeah. So the other 7 candidates had to share the remaining 53%.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you put it like that, it's not for me to boast about it at all. It's basically just to say the people of Swakopmund have spoken. They've literally. I've had people, and I had a couple of American friends across here. I think they left 2 days before the election, so that they were still part of the rallies and all of these sort of things. And it was an amazing experience for them. And their first question to me was, who's endorsing you? What news stations are endorsing you? Which newspapers and all of that? I said, no. You've got it all wrong. We don't have things like that in our elections. It's run from our back pocket. People are giving up their last 200 Namibian dollars to pay for posters and things. And I had an amazing team. And if we speak team in political, sense, it sort of feels like a team that you've put together and you've got a campaign committee and all of that. But this is not at all how it happened. It's just a bunch of people that got together and decided they want me as the regional council. And I'm very proud to say I never once asked anybody to campaign for me. It all happened spontaneously. It all happened because the people saw something in me and they wanted me to take up the flag and walk in the front. And that's how we got to where we are. It was done on a shoestring budget. It was absolutely funded from our back pockets. And I had the one guy phone me the one day and he said, can I send him a profile picture? And so I sent him one of my pictures, and the next minute he sends me a picture back of a T-shirt that he's made with my face on it.
No way. That's some serious enthusiasm.
No, I said, you can't use your money that you need to buy food with to put my face on a T-shirt. And he said, no, I have to campaign very hard because I want a better future for my children.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And that's sort of what happened during this election is, first and foremost, we heard everybody saying we're tired. Everybody say we're done with the corruption. Everybody wants, the powers that be to stop stealing the money that should go to the people. And they just decided they're done with this and they want change. And that's why we had the results that we had.
Yeah, there's a question here from Kyle, who's in South Africa, and he was asking, what's the population? The population of Swakopmund is about 44,700, something like that.
Yeah.
Well, hang on a second. Yeah. Whenever a super chat comes in during Christmas, I have to, oh, Merry Christmas. Daniel Prinsloo. Wow. I always remember Daniel. He's a great contributor here in the chat and the channel. And every time I see that, I think of Sandra Prinsloo and The Gods Must Be Crazy. So that just kind of takes me right back. Speaking of which, I watched that movie for the first time in ages the other night. I was just in the mood to watch it, and it's still just as silly as it was back then. And I find it funny because people attacked me. It was disrespectful to the San. Actually, they came out looking pretty good. It was the white folks and the black Africans that looked like buffoons in that movie, not the San. But it was kind of paternalistic. But and actually, the actor was born in Botswana but lived in Namibia. The gentleman who played the lead role in that. It was anyway. Yeah. So Daniel says, hi, Chris, please find here with plus or minus $3.50 by. Oh, he's being funny. I drink Starbucks, these chocolatey coffee drinks on my show. Yeah, Frappuccino. And I drink and I wear rugby jerseys. So it's kind of my theme. So anyway, so we got a little bit away from that. But no, that's awesome. The enthusiasm there. And it is very different. So as the head of the region, then that's not the equivalent of like Alan Windy in the Western Cape or something like that, is it? I mean, is it as grand as that, or is it more just local sort of thing with just outside Swakopmund? How's it work?
No, it's the entire region. So it's Walfish Bay as well as Swakopmund. It's Henties Bay, Omaruru, Daurus, which is one of our settlement areas, Karabib and Isakos. It's a fairly big region. So it is like the what do they call him, the premier of the Western Cape.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's sort of similar to that.
I'm impressed.
And it's a big deal, but I don't make it a big deal because it's still just a job. I've been elected to do work, and everybody that congratulates me as well, I say to them, well, you're just congratulating me because I really won a big bunch of work to do. So it's not a prize, it's not a achievement, it's really just somebody believed in me to be able to do the work, and that's what it's about. So I don't like the fact that I'm being called the honorable chairperson, and every time somebody says honorable, I tend to. The president just walked in. It's weird.
Who's here? What did I miss? No, I love that down to earth. I love that. I appreciate it. It's kind of like a lot of people like, oh, colonel, because colonel's a pretty high rank, and in uniform, of course, in uniform, I do expect subordinates to salute, and I return the salute, and proper discipline. But sometimes people like that makes you like, I don't know, like the second coming of I don't know something, and it's not. I appreciate the down to earthness, but let me get a couple comments in here very quickly. So there's someone in the chat who is very, very much a sticky viewer on my channel, and I haven't seen him in a long time. He's back, I guess, because he saw you were on. And he was wondering if you two know each other. His name is Christoph Havanga. You might know each other from Paarl or from high school or something like that. Do you know him?
Paarl Gymnasium, yeah. He was my hero.
Ah, you do know him. Okay, there you go. Christoph, there's the answer. You guys do know each other. All right, the secret is out.
Yeah.
Not much of a secret because he kept asking, and then someone's asking on his behalf, so I couldn't ignore it. I assume that. Well, I don't assume. This is probably. Well, come on. Do you know Johan Eisel and Giselle, the Afrikaans singer from Namibia?
Johan Eisel.
Yeah. What? Giselle, do you know her? She sings that song "Side Vest."
No.
Oh my goodness! Oh, they are huge
I
Swakopmund
don't think I
fans.
do. Sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. Well, it's like people ask me. So, do you know John Jones? He's a colonel in the army. Yeah, there are 4,000 of us, and there are 600,000 in the army. So didn't need to put you on the spot like that. But Giselle's kind of a celebrity there.
There was a fairly good chance that I would know them. So good on you.
No, but Johan and Giselle are watching. Giselle is from Grootfontein. And she grew up there. She's a musician. She sings English country music. And she finally released her first album in Afrikaans early this year, Philins Mensa. And she has that song, Side Vest, which became a big hit a few years ago. That's also on the album. So I'm kind of a patron of Giselle's music, and it's kind of the theme music for my show. And so they are big fans. They were just in Namibia. Our father had a heart attack, unfortunately, so they were up there. And they went to Maltaha, and she did a concert there, her first concert performance since lockdown. And she did a tribute song she wrote to Jan Spies, which is kind of cool.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, because he was one of our greats.
Indeed. Yeah. So it's a beautiful song. If you want, I'll share it with you after the show if you're interested. But
yeah, please do. Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to put you on a spot like that. We're here to talk about
No.
Yeah. But based on
I get put on the spot all the time.
Well, now you will. So, Donald Trump said he wasn't a politician. You said you're not a politician, but Donald Trump, whatever he says now, is a politician. He served. You are now serving in elected office. So whether you want to be a politician or not, you may not have the worldview of a politician, but technically you are a politician. So with that in mind, you weren't in politics. And this party was formed in August, and it just rocked up in the shores of Namibia in August. And you stood, and there you are. And what the heck? How did you get into politics? I mean, where did this come from? Obviously, I suspect that you're concerned about the direction of things and you want to make a difference.
Yeah. Look, we, being in the Eronga region, we were hardest hit with the lockdown. So and we sort of believe it's because half of Eronga region, voted for Dr. Itula last year during his independent candidacy when he ran for president. So we sort of jokingly go and say, Hagi closed us down to punish us. But you know what? It was a very difficult time, and I, for one, I find it very difficult to be confined and to be under strict laws that I don't understand. So if I understand something, then I can clear it up in my head. But if I don't understand something, it's a mess. And I couldn't understand why we were being placed under such severe lockdown. And I could see every day how small businesses are closing down. I could see people coming out to the street, beggars. It's not a culture that we have in Namibia, is having beggars on the street. And suddenly in our beautiful Swakopmund, I could see how the people are suffering, and how people have lost their jobs because it's a tourism hub and we didn't have any tourists. And the Afrikaans word, I can't say the English word, but the Afrikaans word is gatvol.
Yeah, you've had it up to here. You've had enough.
Yeah, there's no English word as descriptive as gatvol.
No, that's why I say gatvol all the time.
Yeah, I got very, very gatvol. And there was a protest action running, and I decided to join in. And obviously, having the personality that I've got, I put posters all over my car, and it was, Huggy, when are you coming out of exile? Because it looks like you went into hiding again. And it was all sort of, funny stuff. And I put up Chinese words, and I said probably the only language you understand, and things like that. So
that's cheeky. That's cheeky. I love it.
So obviously it caught some attention, and the police weren't very happy with me. And I drive a big Volkswagen bus, so I've got a lot of space to put a lot of posters on, and I've had these massive Namibian flags flying, and I just drove around like that. And then the one day, returning from one of the protest actions, I had the lady that works for us in the house with me, and I said, and the police stopped me. So it was a policeman and 11 guys from the army, 11 NDF guys in uniform, and 2 policemen in civvies. And I said to Sylvia, our only defense here is you record everything. So turn the video on and record. Mm-hmm. And anyway, this guy comes up to my window, And he starts, "Yeah, I need to get out of the car." And I said, "I'm not getting out of the car." I said, "Why? Why do you need me to get out of the car?" No, because they want to talk to me. I said, "But you can talk to me through my window. I'm not getting out of the car. I mean, it is Corona. We're supposed to have social distancing." So I kept on playing this whole thing. And it turned out to be probably a 4 or 5 minute video of me and this policeman having a debate about the do's and don'ts. And I totally told him exactly what the law says, what I'm allowed to do and not allowed to do. And in the end, I said to him, "Well, either you have to charge me so that I can phone my lawyer, or I'm going to leave."
Yeah.
And he sort of didn't have an answer because I hadn't done anything wrong. And sorry, part of what he had said to me is that first and foremost, I'm not allowed to put posters of the president on my car.
Why not?
And I said to him, "Why not?" And he said to me, no, because he's not here to defend himself. I said to him, "First of all, we're not North Korea." I said to him, "And second of all, you can phone him. I'd love to speak to him. So please phone him so that he can come and defend himself."
Exactly.
But eventually, it all, we parted ways. And that video went absolutely viral. Well, viral in Namibia means 10,000 views.
Yeah.
And then after that, people started recognizing me. So it was like, "Oh, is jy Ciske? Is jy Ciske? Yes, I'm Ciske. Yes. And we got invited to, if I say we, that's our protest action group, got invited to speak with the IPC. So I'd known about Dr. Itula, but I didn't really know about this new party.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, nobody did. So yeah, you can be excused.
Nobody did. And I went there the evening, and everybody's wearing the masks, and it was quite funny because it's all these black guys walking in from IPC wearing their masks, and all these white and Afrikaans and German people sitting there without their masks on. And we were sort of like, okay, none of us really know what to do now. But anyway, and they gave us this whole political thing, we want to bring change and we want to do good, and you go through the motions. And I asked one of the guys, and his name's Joram. He's become a very, very good friend of mine. And I said to him, "Joram, first of all, lower the mask. I need to see your face. And second of all, tell me why you joined. I need to understand what made you join." Mm-hmm. And he sort of, the minute the mask came down, all the walls came down with it. And he sort of looked down at his feet. And when he looked back up, he said to me, "I want a better future for my children in this country." And just there, I said to him, "Well, where do I sign up? Because if that's the answer, then I'm on board. But if you were going to give me any other political nonsense, then I would have walked away and said, no, this is really not for me." And then we had to form a branch. So the whole party structure is you form these small branches because it just makes administration easier. It makes communication easier, all of these sort of things. And I joined the Velvicha branch, and I got elected as vice chairman. So myself, you see, but that's the Velvichas. So myself and Joachim von Wittersheim, his dad used to be in parliament, Anton von Wittersheim. So we sort of said to each other, wherever there's an opening, be it in local authority or regional council, we'll step in there unless somebody else wants to take it, because we're actually the leaders in the branch. And then 2 of our branch members stood up and said they want to run for local authority. And then myself and Joachim said, but we'll run for regional then. And because I was in the upper structure of the branch, I got to know a lot of the other guys in the branches. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the other people in Swakopmund, we got to deal with quite closely. And then when our names came back from Windhoek, because we're also the only party in Namibia that have a minimum requirement of a grade 12, so everybody had to go back.
Requires an education minimum level in order to stand as a candidate.
Yeah.
Not to be a member of the party, but just to stand as a candidate.
Yeah, it's the only party that's got that in Namibia. So when our names came back, I started getting phone calls from the guys in the black area saying, "Please, Ciske, come and talk to our people." And I was sort of taken aback, and I said to them, but why? I'm a white woman. Why would you want me to come and talk to your people? And they said, no, we need you to come and speak to our people. Please come. And we were sort of lived in a country where you were made believe that there's this big divide.
Yeah.
and the one doesn't like the other and the other one doesn't like the other. And we always knew that from our side, it wasn't like that. But now for the first time, I could see from the other side, it's also not like that.
Yeah, that's what they want you to believe. That's what they want you to believe.
That's what they want you to believe. Yeah. And that became part of my campaign message as well, is that SWAPO went and said, you black people, you stand over there, and you white people, you stand over there, so that we can do whatever we want up here. Because they understood that if the nation comes together down here, they've got no power whatsoever. Yep. And they didn't take that into account this election. And with the speeches that they made about slitting the throats of the opposition and the white are calling for war, they just unified everybody. That's what they did with those sort of things they said. And so the guys invited me to come and speak, and I went into the deep DRC. We've got the temporary resettlement of the temporary settlement in Swakopmund, which is called the DRC, and there's 25,000 people living in shacks there. So I went right into the DRC, every weekend, most weeknights, and we just had discussions. And we were actually able to come together, and speak about things. And they adopted me as sort of the mother of Swakopmund. I'm only 37 years old, but I became the mother of Swakopmund because finally there was somebody willing to work for the people. All they had ever known the last 30 years is people abusing the office. Yeah. Now there was somebody that wanted to work for the people. And, people like the story about Mario that I told you about the T-shirt. When we got our sample ballots, for instance, they rushed to get it and to make copies on their own dime. And they went around door to door teaching people how to make the cross, who to vote for, what my face looks like, and there's still people in the street. Then when I drive past, they take my poster like this and they go, it's you, it's you, it's you.
That's brilliant.
And that's the work that they did in the township areas. And that's why I said to you, I never campaigned. I never asked anybody to campaign for me. So then further what happened to that is we had an internal vote to determine who's the candidates within the party, because that's the nice thing about IPC as well. We're very democratically structured. So you have to be voted in by the people into a position. The party doesn't decide who's going to be their candidates. So it's grassroots democracy. And so I was voted in as the candidate for regional council, and then we also elected our top 10 for local authority. And how the election works with regards to the difference is with local authority, we've got 10 seats in our municipality, in our local authority. So if the party gets 10% of the vote, we get 1 seat. 20%, 2 seats, 30%, 3 seats, and so forth. Whereas with regional, you've got 1 candidate, and people need to vote for that 1 candidate. So it was a double election. It was for two positions. And that's how I ended up in politics. And if you had asked me 3 months ago if I would be sitting here and having my face on all the newspapers and doing Zoom meetings with America, I would have said there's not a chance. But
here you are. Folks, I need to do this now. A little bit of housekeeping. I'm a bit tardy, but I didn't want to interrupt my guest. That was quite an interesting segue she was talking about there, how she came to the office. But you're listening to Chris White Africa on the Indaba Africa channel here live on YouTube. Thanks a lot for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Kia leboa, bye bye dankie, vielen dank for everyone who's watching the program. My special featured guest today is Ciske Smith Howard, because her voter ID card was a little out of date. So in order to vote, she had to mess around. So that explains why we had different names reported in different places. People are a little confused. But you mentioned something I think is very important here. It's there are so many people who seek to divide us, whether we're Muslims or Christians, Jews, white, black, colored, Basta, San. They're always trying to break and divide people. And there's a cautionary tale here, and it is Zimbabwe. And I've talked about this since the farm invasions took place there 20 years ago. and all the lies that were spewed about Zimbabwe and continue to this day, and blaming it on one group. And when they marginalize and blame on that group and get rid of them, then they turn on each other. And that's what's been happening in Zimbabwe. So, for instance, you stood for office and you overcame, well, not overcame, but you dispelled the myth that black folks and white folks don't get along. That's simply not true. It's the people who want to divide us. The perfect case of this is Roy Bennett from the MDC in Zimbabwe, who sadly passed away in a helicopter crash a couple years ago. But Roy Bennett stood in a Mashonaland constituency against ZANU, and his constituents were nearly 98% black Zimbabweans. Yet he won overwhelmingly time and again for that seat. He was beloved by people there because he was a great human being, and the fact that he had, pink skin like I have had no impact on whether they voted for him or not. He was their representative, and that's awesome. And by the same token, here in America we had 50 million plus white Americans who voted for Barack Obama. So when people get past this nonsense, it's a good day, and it's great to see that you got out in the equivalent of what we'd say in South Africa is a township with the DRC. It's like a township essentially. Yeah. So you got out in the township and you got amongst people. This, Ciske, is what I keep telling the opposition parties in South Africa. Why are you not in Alexandria? Why are you not in Soweto? Why are you not in Kanisa? Why are you not out in the townships and the rurals? In order to attract people, you can't rock up 90 days before an election. Now, in your case, that's a little different. Your party didn't exist till 9 days before, but that's an outlier. But these parties exist. If they want to win municipal elections like you guys have done in 2021, they need to be out there. And they're not, and I think that's a real problem. So, for you getting elected, what's it like now? And when are you already seated, or do you take office in January? Where are we at on that?
No, I'm already seated. We had our swearing-in ceremony 2 weeks ago, and straight after that, I decided, the work's not going to wait for anybody, so I jumped right in. And luckily, we've got a very good council set up in Swakopmund. The Urongo Regional Council is based in Swakopmund, and our CRO, which is our Chief Regional Officer, she put up a very nice induction workshop, which we had beginning of last week. And I decided straight on I've got to start working. And I'm also the spokesperson for IPC in the Urongo region. So I sort of wear both hats, but do the same job. So it's basically from the party's perspective to pull everything in the same direction. So I've got constant communication with the guys in Walfish Bay on local authority level. I had a big meeting with our town council this afternoon in Swakopmund. I've got one scheduled in Henties Bay for tomorrow. I spoke with Omaruru today. So to sort of bring it all together as a region, both from office side, as in the regional councillor and chairperson for the regional council, but as well as the spokesperson for the IPC. And that's quite nice, because we're such a grassroots democracy party. Many of the other parties that have now gotten to know us post-election, and especially myself and Dr. Itula, who work closely together, and they already saying, sure, we want to be your candidates next time round, because they could see what the party now stands for. And we all for the Constitution of Namibia. If it's not defined in the Constitution, we sort of say, well, we can't help you because we champions for the Constitution, because we've got a great Constitution. It's just never been administered correctly, So that's what's nice about my office. Because I've got both hats, I can sort of be in touch with everybody from an IPC level, so all the candidates from IPC level, to make sure we pull through our mandate, as well as to, not our mandate, our manifesto, as well as to be on regional level where I can assist, on a more on a ministerial, the champion between local and the ministries, which I find quite suiting.
Well, it is interesting because across the board, the Landless People's Movement, the IPC, many parties did quite well, but the main opposition party is a laggard, didn't do very well in this election, and SWAPO was crushed. Other than the rural areas, they were absolutely crushed. And I think that a lot of senior leaders in SWAPO seem to be surprised. I don't know how they're surprised. I actually predicted that they were going to lose a lot of seats. I'm not even Namibian, I can see that. But they seem very detached from their voter base. And they made some very big mistakes. We saw Shali, the former commander of the Namibian Defense Force, making threatening remarks against white Namibians. And I don't have any data to support this, but from having talked to a lot of Namibians, it appears as if white Namibians, which are about 7-8% of the population roughly, came out in droves. People who don't normally vote because they were so angry at this assault on them, and people who hadn't even been involved in the electoral process said, "No, I don't like to stand for this." Now, I don't. That's anecdotal, I don't have evidence of it, but do you think that's accurate, or did people were angry? It wasn't just white Namibians and shit. Lots of black Namibians were angry about what Kingab and what Shali said about white Namibians. A lot of black Namibians voted because of that.
Yeah. Look, it's definitely true, and a big part had to do with it. So I created a sort of just a Facebook group called Liberty Defenders, which I created now, to do voter education and to get people sort of fired up to vote. And that was long before I even stood as a candidate. So because I wanted, people to understand that your vote counts. And that made good grounds amongst the white voters, because suddenly there was somebody, from the white community speaking from that background and saying, listen, guys, the time has come. You've got to stand up for what you believe in. You can't shout from the couch anymore. You can't just moan and groan and not do anything. Get up off your bum and go and make your cross so that you can at least have, a say in something. Mm-hmm. And I had so many people come up to me afterwards and sending me messages and saying, well, that really inspired them to do similar things and to inspire their friends and families to come out and vote. And the big thing is it was just sort of a perfect storm because we've got IPC. So for the first time, there was a party that you could go and vote for. Mm-hmm. For 30 years, we were all sitting on the sideline because we didn't know who to vote for. You were sort of like, who do I know? I know I should vote. But do I give, rather the devil you know than the devil you don't? So who do I give the power to now? And with IPC, I think it was just a clear-cut thing. This is what we have to do. And that's why the people came out in their droves. And, the nice thing about this election as well is we've got the residents associations in many of the towns, but they can only contest on local authority level. So many of the local authority, the residents associations also endorsed me as candidate. And that's why it went so much, the vote was so much higher on the regional side than it was on the local side, because many of the associations who can't run on regional level endorsed me as their candidate. So I really, it worked out very well for me in that sense.
No, that's great. It's interesting to see how things have developed here with all these parties. I mean, I don't know if you want to get into it. We won't really talk about it, but the Windhoek is now out of the control of SWAPO. Excuse me. I started to say Swakopmund. Out of SWAPO's control.
I make the same mistake. Don't worry.
What's that?
I sometimes find myself making the same mistake. You would say SWAPO and then you would just put the P at the end and you're like, oh, damn it.
Exactly. Yeah. I've never done it. That's the first time. But yeah, I could see how it would be easy to do. But they've lost control of Windhoek, and there's a coalition of opposition parties, although the Landless People's Movement didn't join it. But the mayor, of course, is a person who famously said, well, you should occupy land. It's your right to just occupy land. Not exactly a law and order candidate. Job, is it Amupanda? Amupanda, yeah, Amupanda. He's now the mayor, and we'll see what happens there. But it was interesting. He said that I'm not going to wear the chain. It's a vestige of colonialism. Okay. I mean, I think it's kind of an anachronistic sort of thing, too. It's kind of a European sort of thing. We don't really do that much here in the States, but so I get that. But then why'd you become mayor? That's kind of a colonial sort of thing, too.
There was actually more to that story, and I must give credit where it's due. The city of Windhoek had spent almost 500,000 Namibian dollars on fixing that chain.
Oh, my God.
During 2019, and when that story came out, Job actually said that if he someday becomes mayor, he won't wear such a heavy chain, meaning it's so heavy in the amount of money that's in it, as well as it's like our mayor from Walfish Bay said he sort of feels he should wash the black of corruption off. Yeah. So there's something in the chain much more than, what the media makes of it. It's about colonialism and all of those sort of things. In the last 30 years, that chain also it hung around necks that wasn't good for it. And there's a lot of money that went specifically into the chain that could have gone to the people. And I thought to myself when I heard that, you know what, good on you, because I would also refuse something that had cost the people 500,000 and these people sitting in shacks.
Oh,
you know.
absolutely.
So
I don't disagree with that at all. That's but he did say the
yeah,
colonial remark. That's why I actually
yeah,
did a
yeah,
video about that. But that's more of a
yeah. Yeah,
backstory. So we'll have to give him credit for that. His part of his
mm,
issue was less colonial, and it seems more that it was a huge waste of state resources, which are actually the
yeah.
citizens' resources. So
Mm.
in the region where you're at, so Swakopmund about 45,000. How many people are actually in the region that you're responsible for now, roughly? Is it
Can I
over
quickly
100?
Google?
Ah, no, I didn't mean to put you on the spot like that. Okay, let's move on to another topic very quickly. Moving.
No
Before,
problem. Yeah, I think it's over 100,000.
yeah, I think that's where it's at.
Because
But I didn't want to put you on the spot.
yeah,
I
we've
thought,
got fairly big towns.
yeah,
You know, it must be around, it must be closer to 120 if I
okay,
take a quick guess.
yeah, because you got
Yeah.
Walvis Bay is also part of that area, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
that's the other
Yeah.
major settlement there. But this is very
Mm.
quickly for Johan Eisel and for Giselle. Listen, Johan, we're going to have to talk about your media campaign here. I mean, the fact that any Afrikaans speaking Namibian doesn't know who Giselle is, that's not acceptable. We're going to have to work on that. We're going to have to work on that. And insult to injury, an Afrikaans speaker from Swakopmund. Oh my goodness. She is like the spokesman for one of the hotels there. Huge spokesman. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Johan,
Well, I'll have to meet her.
what's that?
I'll have to meet her when she comes back here.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
we'll set up a coffee date.
Absolutely, absolutely. She's great. You'll love her daughter. Her daughter is a beautiful little child, about going on 2 years old now. She's adorable. Her name is El Jose. Anyway, so when you do get to meet them, you'll enjoy it. Yikes. Well, it's
We'll send you a selfie.
what's that? Selfie.
We'll send you a selfie.
There you go. It'll be brilliant. Yeah. Oh, that's it. Rub it in that I don't get to be in Swakopmund. Thanks a lot. I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
By the way, I'm not a beach person, so when I come to Swakopmund, it's not for the beaches. Besides, that water is cold. It's not for me. Even in the summertime, that's cold water. But I do love. I'm a historian, of course, and a political scientist. But German history is one of the things I do research on ethnic Germans, and so that's one of the big reasons why I like a Swakopmund. And also, after that drive from Windhoek, it's nice to actually see civilization after that long stretch of nothing. But for me, the German architecture, the Germanness of it's one of the big draws for me. That's why I come to Swakopmund. But I appreciate that people go there for other things. But I've never done the things a lot of people do. So the quad bikes, on the dunes, and then the skydiving. I'll never do that one. But the quad bikes, I'm up for. But so Swakopmund, it's quite a beautiful coastal location there. A lot of people don't know about it. And it's just north of Walvis Bay, or Walvis Bay, depending on how you pronounce that. But how is it like for you? You say you've been there 3 years now. Obviously, you must like Swakopmund.
Yeah, no, for sure. My husband is quite we both quite active people, but he does surf skiing as a sport. So to do surf skiing, you have to be at the coast. Actually, you and I are talking about the coastline, and that we did a tour last year. Himself and three other chaps paddled from Luderitz all the way back to Swakopmund,
Wow.
and that was a 8-day, paddle through the most remote area in the world, along the southern part of the Skeleton Coast, which was amazing, and you get back to civilization and your phone starts beeping and you sort of just want to turn the car around and go back into the desert because it's just so incredibly blissful and it's just so peaceful. Yeah. And there's just something really special to this desert, and Swakop forms part of the desert. Once you lived here, I know many of my friends that's lived here for a short while, they moved back to Windhoek very quickly because they said, no, they can't stand all the foggy weather and the wind and all of that. But I love it. I adore Swakopmund. I love the people in Swakopmund. I've made tremendous friends, this whole group that I've worked with now during the elections. There's no way for me to not be a part of them. They've really become close friends. And that was quite, eye-opening for me. The minute IPC came around and the minute we started with these elections, it's like my husband always also says, he says, it's sort of like the veil of color disappeared. It's like there's no racism, there's no mention of color. And I think what the party did very, very well, and what Dr. Itula did very well, is the fact that we call ourselves patriots.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong if you call yourself a patriot. I mean, there's nothing offensive about it. You're a patriot. You love your country. You love the people of your country. So we refer to each other as my fellow patriot, and I find it something very special. If I can call somebody a patriot, it's it's actually quite funny. A friend of mine who lives in Somerset West, he commented something on my Facebook, but he's quite active on my Facebook. And one of my other Patriot friends came in and called him a Patriot. And he immediately phoned me and said, Ciske, I'll have to get my membership card. I said, you're a Patriot now. It's out there. So that's what's so cool about IPC. And I've got a sticker on the back of my car that says, I am IPC. And wherever I park and people see it, it's like this wall comes down and they come up to you and they want to know who you are and why IPC and have you met Dr. Itula, and it's this whole conversation starter. And we've never experienced that before. I've always had, interactions across the racial lines, but now it's a coming together. We're all Namibian. There's nothing that's different. It's just you're a Namibian, I'm a Namibian, and that's it. And we call each other Patriot. And I think that's sort of what's happened now with IPC. And it's the same feeling everywhere.
No, it's beautiful. But I have to admit this. Having been to Swakopmund a few times, it always struck me as kind of a really sleepy, hollow place. I can't imagine the rallies and the noise and people campaigning. I'm trying to picture that. I'm like, gosh, it's like the quietest place I've ever been. That's actually a town. So just trying to picture rallies, but I can sense enthusiasm. I saw photographs people posted all over social media and stuff that appeared in the press. People were truly excited about the potential for change in Swakopmund. That's really awesome. Now, as on the regional body, will you have a lot of independence? Or see, South Africa, one of the problems that the municipalities have is that much of their funding is determined by the national government, which is controlled by one party, and say in the Western Cape, a different party controls Western Cape and Cape Town. Mm-hmm. So they can constrain the resources, plus they control the police, and so it's a national level function. Do you have a lot of autonomy, or are you dependent on what the central government sends down and allocates to you? And do they have any kind of direct control over what you do?
Well, to a certain extent, and to a majority extent, I would say they do have control. But we have a very different, and it even became clear, when sorry, I've become like Dr. Itula, where I tell the whole story to get to a point. But it's
become clear
to me, right? It's become clear to me that for the last 30 years, the black guys have always voted. They've always been in line to vote. So, and that's something we missed out on. So when we started with this campaign as well, I wanted to come in there sort of with my white structure of doing things. We've got to have a plan, and this is the media, and this is how we're going to, this is when we're talking to the radio and all of that. And I very soon realized, Ciske, you're not the expert here. You're a very, very big novice in this whole thing. You've never been involved in politics. You've never been involved in voting. You don't know what you're talking about. You've got to hand it over to the guys that's in the know, And that's the same thing. They actually mentioned the word politically mature. Mm-hmm. And I got back home and I thought to myself, sure, because our black guys see Namibia as politically mature, and they directly compare us to South Africa. And that's the big difference between Namibia and South Africa. We are more politically mature. So we don't have that structure that the ANC has, where if you're not with us, you are totally against us, and we will cut you off and cut you up as best we can. Mm-hmm. So, but they also have the electorate still, they've got a big enough majority to do that. SWAPO doesn't have that luxury anymore. They came out with a bloody nose in this election. So they know they need to either toe the line, or things are going to just go downhill from here. And that's exactly what I said to our guys on this side as well. I said to them, even if we just put the pressure on for long enough and hard enough that they start doing the things they're supposed to do, then we've also won. It's just important. We must at all times look at what's best for the people. And if we put the pressure on, and they start doing the things that's in the in the benefit of the people, then we've also won. And I think that's what SWAPO is now realizing. There's one of my SWAPO friends phoned me actually after the election. He said, Ciske, heads is about to roll, because they realize they've come out of this one with this, by the skin of their nose. So they really need to dig in and make some changes. And that's what we want. We want to have that pressure on to say, well, do what you're supposed to do, you know. And that's where we differ from South Africa. South Africa doesn't have that maturity. So even if SWAPO tries to sort of limit us on resources and these sort of things on a regional level, we just have to going to deal with it, you know, and then I'm a bit of a bully in that sense. I'll go the private sector route. I'll make sure I use my mandate to still get the funding in from somewhere, you know, and there's lots of people standing in line now suddenly when they realize there's not this big, you know, bad pot of corruption where all the funds are going in. So I think that's, I'm positive and I'm optimistic that they won't play any funny business with us, you know, because at the end of the day, it is still for the betterment of the people. And I think that's where SWAPO that's still at the heart of SWAPO, is to, you know, not steal everything.
Yeah. Well, listen, people outside Namibia aren't paying enough attention to fish rot. A lot of people are really angry about fish rot in Namibia. That's, for those who don't know, that's this scandal in which an the largest Icelandic fishing company was taking illegal fishing and exceeding their quotas because they're paying bribes off to government ministers. And this has been a devastating situation for SWAPO, and they kind of ignored it until it blew up in their face. And now it's a real serious issue for them. But I have to say this, Ciske, I've been telling South Africans this ever since I really started. You know, I retired from the Army active service in October of last year, was at the World Cup, hence the jersey. You know, I'm a Springbok and a Velveeta fan. But of course, when they play the Springboks, sorry, I'm a Springbok fan. But
anyway.
Have
you seen when Namibia plays the Springboks, that when the Springboks scores a try, the Namibians jump up as well?
Yeah,
so
I know,
quite funny.
it is. But I was at the Georgia game in England in 2015 when they nearly beat Georgia 17-16 and Jacques Burger got injured. That was so close. I thought I had a terrible seat. I was sitting at the end of the field behind the try line, and I'm like, this is a terrible spot. And then almost the entire game was played right in front of me. I'm like, whoa, that worked out well. And then I actually was really looking forward to the Canada game in Japan, because I was in Japan, but I didn't have tickets for it, but I was going to watch on TV there, and it was wiped out because I thought they'd win their first time ever, but they didn't do it. But what I want to say, I think Canada was a wounded duck. They barely got into the World Cup. They were the third. They didn't get the Americas seed. They got the Rapage, so they were lucky to get in. I thought for sure that the Velveetas were going to take them out, but gosh, anyway, but next time. But
I'm a very, very big rugby fan. So
are you serious?
I haven't missed a World Cup. I've got my 2 Namibian jerseys. I've got the one for the previous World Cup and the one for this World Cup. And my poor husband, when it's World Cup, you know, when it's on, I park in front of the television. I take off from work because I've got to watch the World Cup. I'm the same with the Olympics. So for me, it's, you know, my friend who was a matric with me, we've got the biggest interschools in the world between Paul Gymnasium and Paul Boys High. Mm-hmm. And I took my husband, because he was actually in Paul Boys High, and I took him back to interschools last year. And the poor man, from 2:00 the afternoon when we arrived in Paul, up until the last game had played on Saturday afternoon, we had watched all the games in between. And at the end of the day, he said to me, "Can we not watch rugby for a while?"
No.
Playing, and he's like, no, can we I'm just a bit tired now. So I'm a very, very big rugby fan.
Well, you've just secured yourself a slot on this program anytime you would like to come on, just on the basis of that alone. Plus, I've been to every World Cup. What's that?
World Cup time.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I've been to every World Cup since 2011. New Zealand 2011, Paris for the women in 2014, England 2015, Ireland 2017 for the women, San Francisco for the sevens in 2018, and Japan in 2019. All of those World Cups.
Oh my goodness. Well done.
Yeah. So, folks, you're listening to Chris White Africa on the Indaba Africa channel here live on YouTube. My special feature guest today is Ciske Smith Howard, who is she stood for office for a new party, the IPC, there in Namibia, and the opposition party clobbered the ruling SWAPO party in Namibia, and it's kind of set a path for folks to pay attention to here. But before I get to that question, can we keep you a little bit longer? We got a little bit of a late start because okay, great. All right, so I'm going to get to that question, but I've got to ask this question because I've never seen this before. Where does your given name come from, Ciske? I've never seen that before.
It's actually a Dutch name, but if you Google it, you'll end up finding only boys with the name. So it's mostly a predominant male name. But the story attached to it is quite cool. Actually, it's quite sentimental. So when my mother was pregnant with me, she said my father disappeared the one day, and he came back and he said to her, but he went to sit underneath a camel thorn tree to think up what my name should be. And he wants to call me Ciske because it'll always make him think of Christ. And I'm a gift from God. So he wants to call me Ciske because then it's got that connection.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
Well, Chris is not actually my name. I was born on Christmas Day, hence the Chris. So I've always been called Chris. So there's a link there. That's pretty interesting. And that's also to Jesus, but that's pretty cool. Yeah. Well, what I wanted to say next is that, and let me get your thoughts on this because you've actually lived it now. So I've been talking to South Africans since I started this channel. That's where I was going when I started the story, and I got distracted there. I started consultancy with the Indaba Africa Group in order to try to get American business to get into Africa before we missed the boat. Because by 2050, Africa is going to have 2.4 to 2.6 billion people, over a billion people who are almost a billion people are consumer market. It's where all the disposable income is going to be growing. That's where the great future and growth is in Africa, and American companies are just sitting on the sidelines. So I started this consultancy to try to get them there and make a little scratch on the side. But the lockdown came along and canceled a whole bunch of gigs I had set up. And of course, in consulting business, normally you have to be present to do it, so it's hard to do through Zoom. So I decided to take my existing YouTube channel and start kind of promoting, Africa and start talking about it. I did a video on Namibia's beef industry, which was one of my first ones, and it was really well received by people in the beef industry in Namibia. And then I went from there and started covering things. Anyway, but since I started talking on my live streams about elections and about the ANC and about 2021, a number of South Africans said, well, Chris, you're just naive. You just don't understand. No one can ever defeat. Black South Africans will never vote against ANC. And I'm like, well, that's not what the evidence proves. And why are you focused on people based on their skin color is the first thing. Just look to South Africans. Get out there and be among them. So the path I've told people in 2021 in South Africa, which is different. They vote for party lists, which is unfortunate. But in South Africa is you need to be an opposition party out in the townships, in the countryside right now. Not 90 days before the election. Don't go out with posters and T-shirts 90 days before election. You need to connect with voters today. And in South Africa, the ANC has given voters a gift, or given parties a gift. They are the party that banned the sale of open-toed shoes because they're hysteria over COVID. They are the party that banned e-commerce. You want to talk about something that stops COVID? E-commerce. They banned it. They banned tobacco use, alcohol, being on beaches, sitting in your yard by yourself. They've criminalized 250,000 South Africans through unconstitutional acts declared unconstitutional. If you can't defeat the ANC, then you're not trying, is my point. But the point specifically here is that in Namibia, not the same situation, but the anger and frustration with the lack of service delivery, also a South African issue, with the corruption, also a South African issue, and with the disconnect of the leaders of SWAPO, also a South African ANC issue. All of those things are similar, and the environment is similar in South Africa, but they have an opportunity to take it even further with the anger over what's happened over COVID. And what I'm telling opposition parties in South Africa is you need to be out there now. You need to be organized. You need to be talking to people. You need to be addressing them. And I get this from some white South Africans. Well, there's places we can't go. Well, if there's places you feel you can't go, then you're not trying hard enough. I don't care. I've been everywhere in South Africa. I don't hesitate going anywhere, including Hillbrow, just because of the color of my skin. Of course, I'm a little more alert on the street corner of Hillbrow, but I'm just saying. But my point is that you need to be out there. And I think that the opposition parties in Namibia, this is my view, and I want your take on it. The opposition parties in Namibia have taken advantage of a very sour situation. And not in a negative way. I'm saying that it's an advantageous situation. They've seized the day. And there's another reason they seize the day. Municipal and local elections tend to have far lower turnout than national elections. So an opposition party needs far fewer votes to make an impact. And that's the argument I'm telling them in South Africa. Same thing. It's about 35 to 40% turnout in South Africa for municipal elections and the same sort of level in Namibia. So there is a recipe here. And Namibia's opposition parties, whether it's the Landless People's Movement or the IPC or whoever, have just shown the way for South Africa's opposition. That's my thoughts. What do you think? It was a long kind of speech there.
No, I agree 100%. I'm not sure about the South African structure, but something that's very important to mention, and this is basically where because obviously we have a system where you have to register to be able to vote. Mm-hmm. So my whole campaign for change, way before I was a candidate, started with this: why you need to register to vote. Because if you're not registered, you can't vote. And it was because, firstly, I found that people know nothing about Namibian politics. in the sense of how our government works. And it's the same in South Africa, because I spent a lot of time in South Africa. I went to school there, and we were never taught these things. So it's first and foremost, it's important to get to know what your government, how the inner structures work. We get so caught up in what America does, what the UK does, the Middle Eastern politics and all of that. I can tell you exactly how the American system works, but I couldn't tell you how the Namibian system works. And what I found is, and this is the easiest way of explaining it, with our local elections and our regional elections, we've got a similar system to the US system, where you've got the Senate and the House of Representatives. We just call it the National Council and the National Assembly.
Right.
But they both houses of parliament, and the National Council is actually the upper house of parliament. And you cannot pass a law in the National Assembly if it hasn't gone through the National Council. National Council needs to review and make suggestions back to the National Assembly. And so you can pass these laws between the two until you reach the common ground that both houses are happy with. Now, what's happened in the past is, in America, it works very well, because you've got the Democrats in the House of Representatives, and you've got the Republicans in the Senate, and they've gone to the max with the stalemate thing. But it's supposed to work like we only produce the best laws for the people, because we represent the people. And in Namibia, up until this point, we had, how many have we got in the National Council? 42. We've got 42 councillors in the National Council, of which only 4 was not SWAPO members. So anything the National Assembly wanted to do ran through the National Council like water, because there was no opposition in the National Council to oppose these laws. And that's where I started telling people, if you want to make an impact on national level, you have to start now with your local elections, because they serve there past the time period that you've got when you vote in the next president. They're there for another 2 years. So you've still got these vrot apples in your parliament. You can't just change the entire parliament with your national elections. And I'm sure the South African system works in the same way. So again, I would infiltrate the system by getting hard into the local elections. And I'm sort of surprised that they haven't gone that route yet. That the opposition hasn't really. The DA tried it when they captured the what was it, Nelson Mandela municipality.
Yep.
Yeah, Nelson Mandela Bay and the Western Cape and a couple more. But they didn't go hard enough in the northern part of South Africa, where they should have gone harder in for these local elections. And there's definitely a way to defeat the ANC. And we had a lot of hope for the DA. I think the DA, they made a few mistakes over the past few years. And I'm not sure, I can't exactly pinpoint and say this you should have done differently and that you should have done differently. You guys have...
I can.
Yeah, exactly.
I
can pinpoint it, but I won't be able to. And there's definitely something to be said about breaking, because what I've also found is you have to go into the townships, as you said. The people need to know you. The minute you arrive, they sort of still look at you at, what are you doing here? What do you want from me? Up until you start conversing and you start speaking and you start telling the people, and they can get to know you. And obviously, from my perspective, I was very open, honest, and frank. And I said, I still do. I call a spade, and I say the things exactly as they are. And I think that was very well received amongst the people, because they could see I'm not just another politician coming here to garner votes because I'm using this as a stepping stone for a career. I'm a self-made woman. I don't need to have a job. I don't need the office. I want the office because I want to bring change. And I think that was the big turning point where they could, and the same with Dr. Itula, he's a dentist, he's a reconstructive surgeon. So he doesn't need this. It's not something that will define him.
Yep.
But he wants to do it for the people. And there's something to be said about an honest person, somebody that does something for the right reasons. People can see that, and people appreciate that, and they will follow that. But you have to break this mold of you're over there and I'm over there, and we're not really mixing. And unless somebody in South Africa gets that right, where they can really break down the barriers of racism, it won't happen for them.
No, absolutely.
So I'm not sure if it needs to be a new party or if it needs to be a new candidate. I'm not sure which way South Africa needs to go, but that they do need, a revolution at this stage is quite true.
No, I don't disagree with that. It's no, I appreciate what you're saying there. It's absolutely true. It's like Donald Trump. I mean, I wasn't a Trump fan. He's a bit of a cad and a bore, and he's a bully. But he didn't need it. The guy didn't need it, other than for his ego. He didn't need to be president. But he put his fortune at risk, and he went ahead and did it. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of people love the guy. I don't love him, but I enthusiastically voted for him. I'll admit that. But
you don't have to love the person. He's not your friend as long as he can do the job.
Exactly. That's the bottom line. They're effective. Yeah. And I like the approach you said. Like you said, Dr. Tula is a successful dentist. It's not like he needs this. It's you see, one of the problems in South Africa is that the ANC has so corrupted the education system, made it worse than it was under apartheid, far worse at this stage. I mean, 30% is the passing mark on the matrix. Give me a break. Anyway, so they've so destroyed education in South Africa and taken it so far that the expectations amongst people are so low on what they're supposed to do. And instead of aspiring to be a doctor, a lawyer, a dentist, an astronaut, a farmer, young ANC cadres aspire to be ANC cadres so they can be the corrupt ones who steal the tenders. And in fact, that became such a pervasive problem in KwaZulu-Natal that they were assassinating their own party members. Just a decade ago, over 150 members of the ANC local ward councilors and were murdered because someone else wanted that spot so they could get their fingers on the tender. And that's really disturbing when that sort of thing happens. But like you, I appreciate, this is not something you have to do. You've got other things you can do in life. You felt compelled to do it. I kind of feel the same way about my channel. I don't need to do this. I mean, I'm okay. I'm not going to be eating salty crackers, on a corner and starving. I'm not a wealthy man, but I mean, I'm okay. I'll survive. I'm doing this because I'm trying to make a difference and make a change. And also I'm, for the same reason I still got this beard. This is a lockdown beard, and it's not going until the lockdown hysteria ends, which at this point means I might have a beard for a couple years. And the unfortunate part for me is I actually look older than my age now. I always look younger. With the beard, I look older. So I'm starting to look like Pete Retief. Yeah,
I can see it. Yeah. I can see you going.
Yeah, so that's that. So that's a lockdown, and the channel I said I keep doing my live streams is because of the lockdown. I hope it doesn't extend forever because it takes a lot of energy to do these live streams. It's a lot of work, and it comes in the middle of the day. But no, I do appreciate that. It's great when you have people who get into politics to make a difference. One of my heroes was always Davy Crockett. Davy Crockett died at the Alamo. That's not why he's my hero, but he was a frontiersman, and he went to Congress to make a difference. He went there, he did a couple terms, and he came home, and he was just a regular Joe again. That's what he did. So I really appreciate that. But when you get people who spend their entire adult life in politics, not experiencing life, all they know is like Joe Biden. All they know is is the government.
Oh, for sure. You're a politician. That's all you do. They have no experience in the private sector. They have no experience in running a business, but they want to run a country. I mean, it's just.
It's just crazy.
The other story that I wanted to still mention, which is very important, and this sort of hits home to many of the white voters. With you talking about the education system and the 30% pass rate, if you've got a pool of people that you can choose from. And we're the only party that set grade 12 minimum requirement. In South Africa, that doesn't exist. So if you've got a pool of people to choose from, and the highest person in that pool has got grade 12, what are you going to get? You're always going to get a candidate or a politician with the highest qualification of grade 12, maybe. Because the doctors don't avail themselves as candidates. The engineers don't avail themselves. The architects, the town planners, the surgeons, they don't avail themselves to stand as a candidate. Now, if you've got a candidate in power, let's say, for instance, we're all saying, and it's in South Africa the same, we're all saying, when is the Ministry of Transport going to put an engineer in as the minister? There's no engineers that's availed themselves to stand for those positions.
Exactly.
And if you've got a person that's a minister that's got a grade 12, you cannot tell me that they will appoint somebody with a higher qualification beneath them, because that person will outshine them within the first week. So they will always appoint lower than themselves. And that's why the government, now with a 30% pass rate, it's just going to go backwards.
It is.
Because the education gap is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And the other thing, we've got the same problem here where our education is really failing our people. But the one thing they didn't take into consideration is common sense. And that's why they started voting for the white people again, is to say that, we've never stolen we've never been as corrupt as what they've currently experienced. And those are the conversations they're having in the townships. Mm-hmm. They're saying, vote for the white people because they don't steal from us. And that's a big change. And when I tell that to my white friends, they go like, really? Is that really what the people are saying? I'm like, yeah, get in there.
Get in the township.
Go and have kapana with the guys and get to know each other, understand where each other comes from. Don't just judge a person because they're different from you. We've all got our cultures, we've got our histories, we've got our the things that makes us who we are. And if we can learn to appreciate that and respect that, then we've got a bright future. But we tend to judge first. And that's something that we've luckily in Namibia now sort of started to move away from. Yeah. And we appreciate each other for our differences rather than trying to judge each other for our differences.
Yeah, you should celebrate differences. That's what makes things interesting. That's actual genuine diversity, not one of these, one of those, a black man, a white woman, that's not diversity. Yeah. That's what we're talking. So I have to do this. Afrikaner did a dad joke. He said, "Will Ciske rename the Orongo region Ciskei?" Like in the Ciskei in South Africa. That's funny. That's a good one. I actually like that one. We'll remember that one. But I had a senior moment there. I couldn't remember. But Giselle is a spokesman or spokesperson. I mean, I'll play that woke game, but spokesman for the Atlantic Villa there in Swakopmund. I'm sure you know the Atlantic Villa. Yeah, there you go. I'm sure you know that place. Yeah, so she's a spokesman for them. So she does adverts for them a lot. So, all right. Well, here's one thing I want to cover very quickly. This is important. We have, by the way, in case you don't know this, I have, and you probably wouldn't know this, but about 60%, 65% of my audience is based in South Africa, even though I'm an American. And I talk about all of Africa, but lots of South Africans are online, so I drew an audience from there. Plus, I have this affinity for South Africa. So about 65%. But I have about 1.3% of my audience viewing hours. I don't know how many members are from Namibia, but about 1.3% of the hundreds of thousands of views and hundreds of thousands of hours that get watched every month are from Namibia. And with data costing so much money, I'm incredibly grateful for that. There are a lot of Namibians. I mean, relatively speaking, it's a lot of Namibians watching my channel, so it's pretty cool. But what I wanted to say is the Namibians know this story already, and I'm aware of this. I'd like to get your take on it. I try to explain to people that Botswana and Namibia are very different when it comes to race relations. They're not at all like South Africa. Now, it would be easy to understand Namibia to be exactly like South Africa, what with apartheid-like legislation in place back in the day, and then it being technically illegally occupied by South Africa, technically, although they had a League of Nations mandate, but the United Nations rescinded that. But anyway, so it would be easy to understand that there could be these racial tensions just like South Africa. Botswana is a different story. You don't see that at all. When you go to Botswana, if you're white and you're black, people get along by and large. Nobody has this issue where people live with. If you have interracial relationships, people don't pay their mind. But go to Pretoria, go to Joburg, go to well, maybe not so much Cape Town, go to Durban and be a white man with a black woman or a white woman with a black man, and people just will look and stare just because that's still the norm. But in Namibia, it's a very different vibe. You don't see black and white Namibians at each other's throats. You don't see this hatred being spewed all the time. You see politicians trying to divide people along those lines. But just my experience in Namibia, now I've never been below I've been down to Rehoboth in that part so I've only been to the central part of Namibia, east, west, a little bit to the north. But I've never experienced that. And I tell people that race relations in Namibia are, I don't want to say cordial, but they're certainly not the caustic mix that we hear in South Africa.
No, not at all. And I think it's very much to do with the people. I think, and I suppose I need to be careful, but for us, the people that we have in Namibia, between the white people, the Afrikaans people, the German people, the Oshivambu people, the Oshiherero people, it's a very peace-loving people. It's not people like, for instance, like you have in South Africa, where you've got the Zulus, who tends to be more aggressive and who tends to be more, a conquering nation. They want to conquer the smaller groups, and that's their history, and that's what they've always done. We know what they did to the Voortrekkers back then, and all these sort of things, and that's their history. That's what they've always done. Whereas we've never had that in South Africa, in Namibia, and I also don't think they ever had it in Botswana. And I think that's the main difference. There's not this hatred. And also the other thing that you must remember, when we fought our border war, it was fought against the South Africans, not necessarily the whites, because it was against the South Africans that fighting happened, you know. And I think that's sort of where our people come from as well. Where it's not, they don't see the white person as the enemy that they fought against, more that it was this neighboring nation, you know, whatever their name is, it's this neighboring nation that came to occupy Namibia, and we didn't want that. Whereas in South Africa, you've got the same country still, you've got the same name still. It's only the dynamics that changed, and I think that's where the whole problem comes in. We had an independence, a straightforward independence, name change. It was a clean cut, basically. You've never had that cut in South Africa. There was 1994, but nothing visually sort of changed except the flag and the national anthem. You know, it didn't become a new name. It's not a new place. It's just an old place that sort of left the history behind. And I think that's sort of part of it, where you can't move past it because it's actually still just ingrained. And it's weird that when I land, for instance, at OR Tambo, and the minute you get off the airplane and you walk into the airport building, you immediately feel that tension and you immediately feel that hate. And it's maybe just a perception, you know, it's maybe just because we know there's a big media perception always being created. But I don't like going to South Africa because I never feel welcome, in the sense of, you know, in Namibia, like with these American friends that was here, we were driving in Windhoek, and this one bakkie came to stop next to me, and the guy looked at me and he waved, and I waved at him, and my American friend said to me, "Do you know him?" I said, "No, it's just the Namibian way. We wave at each other, you know, we always greet each other." I would walk in the streets and we would greet each other. That was the hardest thing for me during Corona, is wearing this mask, because now I can't just smile. I have to go, hello, 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 hello.
Well, it's funny that you say that about Americans. You must have been talking to some city slickers, because that's how I grew up. I mean, we driving down the road. We drive in Appalachia. I mean, I see another car on the road, you just wave to people, you know. And well, you don't do that so much anymore these days where I'm at. But I'm often walking along the road, picking up rubbish, getting exercise in. I recycle aluminum cans rather than watch them go into the water table. But and I always wave to cars driving by, and they always wave to me. Some people honk, you know. So that's a very American thing. So to hear Americans puzzled by someone waving to people, that sounds like a bunch of city slickers. Not my kind of folk.
No, they're from New York, so
that's not America. That's a socialist paradise these days. But
I won't do it.
So there's an elephant in the room I want to get to before we close, and I think this is an important one. People need to know about this, and this is the thing I always find funny when we're talking about white Namibians. You know, you've got Germans, and I don't know the exact number. My estimate's probably about 35, maybe 40,000, probably not that high, but they have a lot outsized influence. They're very influential in Namibia, particularly in Windhoek and Swakopmund and Luderitz, places like that, but not just there. Also in the tourism industry and the mining industry. But Germans and Afrikaners, you know, I go to restaurants and I hear the Afrikaners speaking and I hear the Germans speaking, and they all act like no one can speak Afrikaans or German, only they can. And you know, the Afrikaners are always making fun of the Germans because they're rude and they're prudish and they're stuck up, and the Germans are always looking down their nose at these farmer hicks, you know, although a lot of the Germans are farmers too. There's the irony. But these farming hick, these country oaks, these toothless boar, you know, that sort of thing. And then I noticed that their sons and daughters marry each other. What's up with that?
We secretly just love each other. That's what it's all about.
Exactly.
We respect each other. My dad always had this thing where he'd say, you first have to bliksem a German before you can talk to him, because otherwise they don't listen to you.
That's actually pretty funny.
It's an age-old fight between the Afrikaans and the Germans, and I think it comes from like the 60s, 70s. They've just always had this this friendly sort of bantering between the two, but yeah, we do like the German Okies, and the German Okies do like the Afrikaans girls, and makes for a good match. But yeah, I can't explain it to you any other way than that.
Well, listen, we could probably talk forever, especially since you're a rugby lady there. So, but we're not going to do that because the daylight's disappearing behind you there, and I don't want to keep you forever. What's that?
So for me, I'm a bit of a chatterbox, so I don't really mind.
Well, the problem is there's two chatterboxes in this stream, and so so let me ask you this then. We won't end just yet then if you're not ready to rush off. So because we have a good audience here. In fact, the biggest audience we've had all day. It's just grown. So we're gonna stay now because I'm desperate for attention on my channel. No, I'm just kidding. That's a response to something somebody said recently. But so what are you hoping for here? I mean. Are you, because this is what I want to talk about maybe on a future stream, is that what a lot of people don't realize is that after 30 years of SWAPO governance, now they inherited this situation, but after 30 years, I mean, come on, 3 decades, 2 generations, maybe 3 generations of people, you ought to be able to affect change when you control everything. Still, half the country lives in abject poverty. I mean, less than $2.60 per day is what most of the country, or half the country, lives on. All these years later, and I'm sure that played a role in anger over Swakopmund, either not creating jobs or creating an environment, ecosystem in which business can flourish. And to be fair, it's a small country, but Botswana has done well, and they also still have about 40% of the population in poverty. So poverty still remains a major issue. Is that a major concern in Swakopmund, and is that something you can tackle in your responsibility, or is it more of a national thing?
Look, firstly, I need to clear it up. When Namibia became independent from South Africa, we received the country with 0 debt. Yeah. So we had no debt whatsoever. So we were really able to start on a clean slate, and so the poverty was inherited, but not to the extent that SWAPO would like you to believe, because the major amount of looting happened over the past 30 years. Let
me clarify this, Ciske. What I mean by that is not that the state was in debt. I mean that the average person, about half the population, didn't have much of an income, is what I mean. They lived poorly, is what I mean.
Yeah. Look, and the big thing was the lack of industry. Yeah. So because we were linked to South Africa, we didn't need industry of our own. But one would have thought that, when SWAPO came into power, that would have been part of their initial 5-year plan, is to create industry for Namibia, to get Namibia, truly independent, because we're not truly independent from South Africa. We still peg to the rand, for instance, and we can't unpeg because it'll be a disaster, because we don't have industry, we don't have food security, we don't have jobs, we don't have any of these things. We're so reliant on South Africa that we're only actually independent by name and by political power, and that's part of the problem. And yes, that is something I can tackle in my region, and it is something that I have a mandate to address. And that's part of your previous question as to how supportive will the government be with regards to projects like that. And I believe that I'm not even thinking along government lines. I'm thinking purely private sector. I'm thinking purely, partnerships with the private sector. I'm thinking, donations from outside, so that we can establish, small businesses and grow that into revenue streams back for the council and into revenue streams for the community and those sort of things. Because I understand that I can't ask anything of the government at this stage. I'll simply not get it, and it'll be a time waster. So I'm already, engaging with the local authorities and these people to understand what their need as well is, so that we can move in one direction. Because now what's happening is, for instance, there's grants being given out to SMEs from a development fund. And at the same time, there's low-cost houses being built in the same area as where these SMEs are being put up through these grants. But they don't talk to each other. So the houses, I would have gone and said, these SMEs, I'm going to make them into, little businesses that do doors and windows, or, molds for toilets, or these sort of things, so that I can buy that and put that into my affordable house. But there's this sort of disconnect where we're plodding along on this side while we're plodding along on this side, but the one is not interacting with the other. It's like we've got green schemes and we've got a food bank, but the food bank doesn't buy from the green scheme. So we're wasting money through buying from, mostly South African companies, where we could be buying from our own local producers. And those are the sort of things that I can have an immediate effect on by just getting an overview of exactly what's going on. And that's sort of my holiday homework. I won't have much of a holiday because I've got a few acts, to get it up to speed with and to understand. I'm going to go buy a big whiteboard because after our induction, I'm just even more confused, because of all these little things. And there's just holes being plugged with committees and holes being plugged with more staff and, all these things. And I sort of want to get a big overview so that I can say, let's pull this all together and then pull together with the other towns in the region as well so that we can get to a collective goal. And that hopefully will result in creating jobs and, lifting people out of poverty and giving them a future. Even if we just start small and they can build on it, then we've already done a good job because currently everything is just going backwards.
Well, I just
realized
something. No, that's great. I just realized something. If there's a time in which we sit in a coffee shop, you and I and Johan Eisel, I was reading something, Johan Eisel, who's Giselle's husband, the three of us will probably wind up having the police show up because the owners of that shop will ask us to leave hours after they've shut down while we're all still sitting there chatting about things. The three of us in a room, wow, we'd probably have to pull out some amphetamines or something because we'd be up for days chatting. It's a pretty scary thought.
Yeah.
Jürgen, this is why Jürgen came to my mind, not Johan, but Jürgen Lasek said, I'm half German, half Afrikaans. I love both my family sides. See, there you go. There's one right there. There you go. Exactly what I said. Lars Salas, who's from Namibia, says, if a car breaks down in Namibia, you can stop and ask for help or phone someone. In South Africa, you just keep driving past. No, that's a true statement. I mean, even here in the States, you have to get a little bit leery in some places now. Germany has a good Samaritan law in which if you don't stop for a motorist who's broken down, you can be charged with a crime. So I've always been in the habit of here in the States growing up that you just stop and help people. And then I went to Germany, it was a law. So my natural inclination is to stop. And in Africa, I typically have done that. But honestly, in South Africa, you put your life at risk in a lot of places. It's really crazy because you have malicious people who are waiting to prey on you. So now let me ask this one for you, Ciske, because you're a woman and you're now in politics, whether you want to be a politician or not, you are in politics. So this is a massive issue around the world, but especially in South Africa, it's horrific. What's it like from a standpoint, and is this a major issue in Namibia, gender-based violence? Is that a big problem in Namibia?
Oh, it's massive. And the big problem is the lockdown made it a lot worse.
Because now you have access to beat on people 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah. So it's really it's become a very, very big problem, and it's only starting to surface now. We've always had a gender-based violence problem, but it's really sticking out like a sore thumb at the moment. And I don't yet have a full-on solution for it. It's for many of these issues and these problems, I've already started thinking, about solutions, and we've come up with solutions, and I've engaged with people. But there's no clear solution for me at this stage, which will be a quick fix. We have to address the problem, obviously, first and foremost. We have to be very strict with our law enforcement. But further to that, we have to, and that's where the long-term thing comes in, we have to put up centers that the vulnerable people can go to where they will be protected. But we don't have that. We don't have centers for children. We don't have, our social workers although they're working very hard, I'm not sure if they're getting all the resources and all the help that they need to get in order to take these children out of these homes. And then where do they go with them, and where do they go with the women that are being abused? And the hospital system is failing. So you can't go there because, you'll sit in line for an hour or the whole day and still not get treated, and then you've got to actually go back to work because you're in a poverty situation. And the list just goes on and on and on and on. And it is a big problem. For me, with my personality, I wouldn't allow it. So I would probably take down the power pan and hit somebody that tried to abuse me, So that's also, but that's again an education thing where you have to get, and that's why I'm saying it's a long-term problem, where you have to get down, to the young girls and talk to them why it's not okay and why not to allow it even the first time it happens, to make sure that you stand up for yourself and teach them what it means to have self-respect and teach them what it means to be, where you as a woman, a man must give you that respect. It's not something you need to earn. Just the pure fact that you're a woman, a man is your protector, and he must give you that respect. and that's why I'm saying there's no quick fix to this thing. We've got a lot of work to do with regards to the gender-based violence, and it's a very sore point for me, because especially it's happening to young girls as well, and what life is ahead for them, after they've been through experiences like that. I don't want to think about it, because if I think about it, it's already traumatic. So how much more traumatic is it to them?
Yeah.
So that's really one of the things that's really high on my priority list. And I've already started asking the questions, and I'm not getting a lot of answers, because the guys that's been assigned with these tasks to start solving the problem, they really don't know. They really don't have the education. They're not being given the tools to address the problem, nothing like that. So we're just putting a band-aid on a very serious wound.
No, absolutely. And from my perspective, this is just sharing my view on this, because this is more of a conversation than an interview, clearly at this stage. But no, from my perspective, government really isn't the answer. It can be part of the answer, but it's cultural change, societal change, and it pervades all ethnicities. I mean, we have it here in the U.S. A couple years ago, because as a full colonel, I was doing the job of a private, because they didn't have anybody at the War College who spoke French other than me, and so I spoke French, and we had a foreign student here who was a colonel and who was beating his spouse, and she didn't speak any English. So I got drug into a domestic situation, and so I saw this. I mean, I've known, of course, I've known this my whole life, but this is a very recent issue. And actually had to play a role in going to the courthouse to translate and to be an interpreter, go to the attorney's office, go to immigration, to a lawyer, to the women's shelter, and all those things. And so from my perspective, I saw the role of the government, and there is a role, but to me, I think the private sector can also play a role in the community. So, for instance, I doubt there's any shelters for women and children right there in Swakopmund. So there's a start right there. Maybe somebody needs to look at a property, and that could be something donated by the private sector. And there's just a start there. So, I mean, it's a tough nut to crack, because it's such a thing that people just don't want to talk about. They want to ignore it. And then without even getting into this is, when lockdown started, one of the reasons I did this is because people can only watch so much of Mnet before they want to slice their wrist. They're tired of watching DSTV. So looking for something else. So I wanted to talk about issues and events and do interviews like this, and musicians and artists and such, and talk about events. And so that's one of the reasons why I did the stream. But I cautioned people. I said, one of my real concerns about this with this lockdown, because it was draconian in South Africa, they would arrest you for walking out of your house, is social isolation, depression, suicide, and then the things that people don't like to talk about. I mean, not that people like to talk about those, but gender-based violence, spousal abuse, and incest. I haven't heard no one talk about incest, but if you have small children, mostly girls, but not exclusively girls, small children around their abusers 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, then the abuse is just going to ratchet up a notch. There's no way they're not going to take advantage of that access to the target of their abuse. And these are things that no politicians are talking about around the world at all. And it's very disturbing. And then on top of that, now we keep kids out of school, and we're harming children, forcing them to learn how to adapt to facial expressions from adults when you can't see their face. How do you know how to gauge a person's face when you're a toddler and this is all you see all the time? It's just without the beard. Yeah, it's just crazy stuff. But anyway, so that's kind of my thoughts on it from a private sector perspective. You keep talking about the private sector a lot too. I take it that's because you have a lot of faith in the private sector.
Look, we actually had this discussion this afternoon during a town council. When I spoke with them, I have a lot of faith in the private sector. I don't think the private sector had a lot of faith in the political sector. Mm-hmm. In the situation that it was in, but now that the climate has changed, I think the private sector will start giving their inputs again, and will come to the party, because they're not just aiding and abetting corruption, they're now actually helping the people. And I think if we can get that message through, then we will get a lot of support from the private sector, because people inherently want to help. They want to be involved in projects. They want to be involved in their community, and they want to help people. That's a basic human need. So I really believe that if we can get, if we can convince them that we're here to stay first and foremost, and if we can convince them that we're here to do good, I definitely think the private sector will toe the line.
No, I think that's great.
It's our social responsibility, so
what's that?
It needs to happen. I say it's our social responsibility, so it needs to happen.
Yeah, no doubt about it. By the way, never get rid of those frames. Those are very much, that's kind of like, I'm a rugby shirt wearing guy who drinks the Starbucks, but those glasses really make you easily identifiable. They suit you well. That could become your trademark. I don't know where you got those frames at, but they're pretty cool. I have to say that. So
Cool. Thanks very much. I'll just go bigger.
Oh, okay. Well, that you could do the Elton John approach. Just get the bigger ones there. There's a couple comments from the chat. Hendo said this stream is turning into a Namibian promotion. Saffers looking to move there. Yeah, a lot of South Africans in chat like, I want to move to Namibia. That sounds a lot better. Yeah, I could see why you'd want to. And then Andre Lowe said, I wonder how many lower level politicians like this exist all over the world. The people who actually keep the world going. Very impressive. No race baiting or BS. I changed it from what he wrote to BS. Just a clear desire to help. Wow, that's very, very, not generous, but very kind. Very, very nice of him to say that. Yeah, so... your husband, we're coming up on 2 hours, and when we do finish the stream in a little bit, just tell him you were talking about rugby. You're watching a rugby match. It'll be okay.
No, we've got a charcoal factory, so we produce charcoal briquettes in Karabib. So, one of the newspapers wanted to do this whole story on me and that, and I said to them, I challenge you to find another candidate who's already employing 200 people. So if you can bring me that candidate, I will give you all the dirt on myself, and then you can write whatever sensational piece you want to write. So I never heard back from them again because I don't think there are any other candidates that's already employing 200 people.
Oh, I seriously doubt that.
So yeah, he's still out on the factory, so he'll be back only late, but otherwise he's also a chatterbox.
Oh.
So you'll have two of us in your hands.
Well, if we get Johan Eisel together, my goodness, and we sit down at Atlantic Villa or something like that, they'll be kicking us out. We closed 4 hours ago. Could you people just leave now?
Just go to the room and just continue it so the staff can go home. Yeah.
Now I want to get this chat. This was back on the gender-based thing. Let me find it very quickly here. Erica wrote this. It was very funny, so I got to do it. I'm going to miss it. Where does she at? Oh, yeah. She says, if anyone claps me, I'll clap them back. And at 4'11", my reach is low.
It's quite funny. There was this video that surfaced, it was probably 2 years ago, of this young lady in a polo. Mm-hmm. and she parked in front of a townhouse complex in front of the gate. And these two hijackers came around, and they were knocking on the window with their guns, and you could literally see the young girl sitting in the car going like this. And they were looking on the window with the guns, and she's going. And the first time I saw it, I said to my husband, that chick's from Namibia. I promise you she's from Namibia. Next day, she's from Chubeb in Namibia. I said, we were so told, we were so taught to fight back. You never give up. So even if the hijacker, both of them, they eventually shot into the car, and that's when she got out, But she was literally sitting there shaking her head at them when they were telling her, get out. And she's like, nope. Not happening, and that's so ingrained in, and that's why I appreciate the comment from Erica, saying that if he claps me, I'll clap him back, because it's exactly the way we are. We had one of our oldest surgeons got attacked here in Swakopmund. It's one of these silly things, where somebody wanted his wallet, and he pulled out his knife to attack this old man, and Dr. Bass pulled out his knife as well, and he said, okay, let's fight, and they fought back. But that's the way. Yeah. That's the way we are. We fight back, and it was very disturbing for me during this whole these BLM protests and these things going on. We young girls. You would see these videos on social media where young girls would be attacked, and I said to my husband, "There's no way. If you knew me when I was a 16-year-old, I would have kicked and screamed and bitten people, and I would have fought till death." But nobody will ever touch me, mm-hmm. in such a manner where I feel threatened. And I think that's also part of the education that we need to bring back to the young girls is stand up. It's fight back. There's no reason for you not to fight back. There's nothing that prevents you from fighting back, and I think that's also something that still our fathers in Namibia do a very good job in teaching us as young girls, I had a bully at school, and that was the last time I was bullied was when I was 10. And he said to her, well, put him in a chokehold until he passes out. He'll never bully you again. And I did. And he never bullied me again. And that was the answer. When I said I'm being bullied, he said, well, do something about it. And that's the way we grew up. And I think that's really something we must instill in young girls again, is to say, fight back. There's no reason for you not to fight back. Stand up for what you believe in and go for it.
Well, there's something here that's not a solution to everything, Ciske, and it's certainly not something under your purview at the regional level, but maybe you have some influence over it. And it's something I harp on all the time. What I'm saying is it doesn't solve all these problems, but it certainly improves self-worth, self-esteem, and confidence, particularly in women and young girls, and that's education. We see it with birth rates. In countries with astronomically high birth rates in Asia and Africa, when girls get higher and higher level education, I'm talking about getting through primary school, that cuts the birth rate demonstrably because girls learn about themselves, get a little bit of confidence and their relations, their sexual relations. Then if you continue to get through secondary school, when you get up to there, then you start getting even more benefits of girls with self-esteem, self-confidence. It's not perfect. We all have our own, our own foibles, but generally speaking, getting a proper education gets women and girls to a more even level playing field, that they will be better in society. They'll be able to react to these situations better. They'll not have unnecessary pregnancies that they did, or unwanted pregnancies. All these things contribute, but the key is education. And I'm not talking about specific education, about sex education. It's just education in general. The more literate, the more informed, the more critically thinking women and girls are, the better off we all are.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. That's one of our big drives on a national level. We're just not there yet. We really need to focus on education. And I mean, Dr. Itula's got 11 qualifications. One of that is his medical degree, and he's got a law degree. So he's absolutely one for education. And for me as well, I feel that that's the key to the future, is to educate the people, and make sure. Something I didn't know is up north in Namibia, we only found it out now during campaigning. One of the guys said to me, but you know what, we only go to school maybe twice a week. And I say, why is that? And he says, no, because somebody needs to watch the cattle.
Yeah.
So they literally rotate the kids to say, today's your turn to watch the cattle and you can go to school. Tomorrow it's your turn to watch the cattle and you can go to school, And it's very sad to think that the level of education is already not great, and now they're only getting 2 to 3 days a week.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar with that because the cattle post in Botswana, it's the same sort of situation. And so you have kids who are undereducated or not properly educated because there's no one else to keep an eye on the cattle. It's pretty sad. Now, the young lady who was, shaking her head when they were trying to get in a car with the gun. So this was a comment from Christophe Havangi, your old schoolmate there from Paarl. He said, maybe the lady thought they wanted to sell the guns. She was just so innocent. No, I think, Christophe, it probably wasn't the case because they weren't South African Police Service officers. Oh, slam! They weren't saps, so why would they be selling guns? Oh. Oh, Chris is naughty. There goes the Christmas list. Santa will make me pay now. But see, I'm Santa this year, so that's going to happen. By the way, we're having a Christmas program coming up the week of Christmas. You might want to watch that. We got musical guests on. And so maybe Danny Bota will be on here, and then Giselle, and maybe Monty Jackson. I'm waiting to hear back from him, so we'll see. Anyway. Christoph says, on average, education equals baby production decline. No, it's absolutely true. Absolutely true. Anyway, so, all right, listen, we got to stop being chatterboxes. Not that I'm going to rush to get out of here, but I will send you by email my mobile number, and so we can be in touch if you like. You're welcome to come on anytime. If you want to talk about an issue in Namibia, and there's actually a fair number of Namibians that watch this program, black and white, and Bosters, not colored, who watch the program. So you're welcome to come back on. And I'd like to invite you back on as things get progressing to see how it's going, if you don't mind. But anyway, before we wrap up, anything you want to leave us with, any thoughts or hopes or aspirations? It is the festive season. It is Christmas, although you're not going to have much of a Christmas, apparently, because you're busy working. And by the way, you were talking earlier about going to Skeleton Coast. You come back to civilization, your phone's beeping. You thought that was annoying. Now that you are a politician, that's really going to be annoying.
All the time. But you know what? My mom always says, in for a penny, in for a pound.
Exactly.
So I signed up for this.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, for some, just some remarks. Thanks very much for having me on the show. It's been great. I've really enjoyed talking to you, and thanks for the viewers as well, and everybody giving their inputs and being a part of the conversation. It's quite refreshing. And yeah, for the Christmas season, just be good to your fellow man, and make sure that the people are okay around you. Ask them, if they need help, and especially with the hard lockdowns and the things that has happened this year, I think it's just important to really get down and get in touch with people. It's easy to buy a gift, but rather give the gift of your time and go sit with the old people and ask them if they're okay, and take that extra 5 minutes and talk to people. Because conversations at the end of the day is much more valuable than spending money on gifts. So if I can leave you with that little bit of advice.
Well, no, that's well stated, and no, it's well stated, and I can echo that because my mother passed away last Monday, and over the past 7 or 8 months, I spent a lot more time talking to my mother, and then actually got a chance to go visit her while she was still lucid, and she was capable of talking to me. I spent 3 days with her just a few weeks before she passed away. So I agree with you. It's difficult in this age when people are keeping us away from the elderly because of the COVID stuff. But whatever you can do. That's if you can, just talk to them on the phone or Skype or Zoom or whatever it takes. Reach out to folks, especially those who are isolated. So great thoughts, Ciske. I really appreciate that, and hopefully people listen to you. By the way, there are so many really awesome things people are saying about you in the chat that I can't cover them all because it'll eat up another 20 minutes, and we're not going to do that.
No, but thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the interest from everybody on the chat. It's great to see people are interested in what we've got to say, and that's already a very big step in the right direction.
No, I agree, and you're going to help me get Dr. Tula on sometime soon because we got to get him on now. But
you've got to have lots of time for that.
Yeah, well, I've got this jaw pain, so maybe he can help me with it.
Yeah, fantastic idea. Well, thanks, Chris. I really appreciate you taking the time and getting in touch with us as well.
All right, thank you very much, folks. Ciske Smith Howard from the IPC from Namibia. Thanks a lot, Ciske. I'll let you step out of the chat right there, and I'll wrap up the show. All right, there we go. She's dropping off, and just a second there, and she's turned her camera off but not dropped out of the stream. Let me do that really quickly. Okay, there she goes. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been epic. Wow, really awesome stream. We got a little bit of late start, some snafus, technology, but we overcame that. Thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate your sticking with us, particularly when, it's a sign that I may not have my guest if I start playing music at the beginning of a stream like this in a special feature. So we started with Uns Mensa and then went on to play Side Vest. But thank you for your patience. That gave us time to get everything sorted out, and we got Ciske on the program. Wow, really awesome. A lot of people saying really wonderful things, and with good reason. Fascinating person, fascinating candidate. It's a pleasure to get to know her here on the stream. It was my first time actually talking to her. I hope you guys found it fascinating and interesting. And thank you so much, Mr. Prinsloo, for the super chat there at the beginning of the stream. Wow, man, it was an awesome super chat. Really appreciate it. Clem, thank you so much. Teresa, thank you. For Connor, says Ciske's great ambassador for the Namibian people. I think so. Two says it possible for South African to buy property in Namibia. I believe you can, but I can't swear to that. So you can check into it pretty easily. Do a little search on it. Good evening to all the bosses, says Christoph Havanga. Christoph, that was pretty cool that you guys went to school together. I had no idea. That's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. All right, folks, that's it. We'll do a Night Owls edition here in about an hour and 35 minutes. And thank you so much to Ciske for being my guest today. That was really awesome. I'm kind of stoked about Christmas now. I mean, when you have a great guest on the program, it's always enjoyable. You get a good rush and adrenaline. I really enjoyed that. Yeah, we're over 100 likes. 77 people still watch it. Come on, smash the like button, people. That was awesome. She's amazing. She's amazing. Yeah, and now I didn't do this, but maybe on another stream, I'll talk to her about the charcoal industry because I'm not a big fan. No, I'm not a green eco-environmental terrorist, Nazi, friggin', lunatic environmentalist. I am a conservationist, so I'm curious about conservation and how they go about that. That would be pretty cool to find out about. Anyway, so smash the like button before we go, folks. Thanks a lot. We're coming up on 2 hours. I'm going to close out here. Fantastic interview, guest. Like I said, more of a conversation on Chris White Africa. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll catch you here next time on Chris White Africa. God bless. Have a good day, and I'll catch you next time is an hour and 35 minutes from now, so not much of a break for me. We'll see you then. We'll talk about all the developments here in the U.S. related to the election, what happened in South Africa last night with President Cyril Ramaphosa. Also, there was an announcement by Namibia's President Kingab about It sounds like they're going to do some more lockdown stuff over the Christmas season. We'll talk about that potentially too. Anyway, yeah, Erica says, where do they find trees in Namibia for charcoal? That's a good question. That was part of my question. All right, folks, there you go. We're out of here. Thanks a lot. Appreciate your support. God bless, and we'll catch you here in an hour and a half if you can make it back.